Let's bring in Dave Sharma, Liberal Senator for New South Wales, former Australian ambassador to Israel, joining me live from Sydney. Good to talk to you again, Dave. Tell me about your assessment of the response today from the federal government and the National Security Committee of Cabinet, declaring this terrorist act and setting up a task force against anti-Semitism.
Well, I'd say it's about time. It's only come in response to significant political pressure from the Jewish community, but also from the opposition, from ourselves. And these are the sorts of steps that should have been taken months ago. I mean, the fact that we have reached this point where places of worship are getting firebombed, where the Jewish community, which tends to stay out of politics as much as it can, has pleaded with the Prime Minister to do more, it just shows the dereliction of leadership that's taken place over the last 12 to 14 months. A government that has either been in denial about the scale of the problem we're facing or seeking to obfuscate some of the solutions. It's been a terrible performance by them. Now, I welcome the small steps they've taken today, but a lot more needs to be done.
Well, as I showed at the top of the program, I'm among many people who have been pointing this out all along, and you too have been, Dave. Now, this is what confuses me. It's been so clear the anti-Semitism at play here, the hatred, the threats, the vandalism on display for all of the last 14 months, and that the government needed to do. Do you think they just thought that this would wither on the vine and die away? Do you think they were so naive that they didn't expect this was going to get worse? Obviously, with this sort of extremism at play, unless there are crackdowns on it from authorities, it's always going to get worse.
That's absolutely right. And I know, many people have been calling now for months for arrests to be made, for charges to be laid, for the law to be enforced, for police to take a tougher stance against protests, for the Prime Minister to speak with a clear voice, for his cabinet ministers not to go out there muddying the waters and stirring things up. All of us have been seeking for this to happen. But I think the government, I think Anthony Albanese, the most charitable interpretation was he hoped it would all just go away and simmer down. And of course, those of us who have any experience of how things unfold in the Middle East, the history of anti-Semitism worldwide, how, hatred against Jews, it often lies only quite shallowly beneath the surface of many societies. I think all of us were alarmed when we saw 2 days after the 7th of October, when Israel was still trying to recover its own hostages and evict terrorists from its towns, the protests on the Opera House steps that just showed a level of hatred that I think many Australians found hard to comprehend. That should have been the sign then that if we didn't act quickly, this problem will get out of hand. But instead, the government's been asleep at the wheel now for over a year.
Exactly. We needed to see action in those first couple of days. We were calling for it. We've seen nothing. And here we finally see some sort of belated action 14 months later. Dave, I want to leave that issue to the side for a moment and tap into your Middle East expertise now because of the fall of the Assad regime unexpectedly quickly in Syria. Here's an update from Sky News UK.
It's all over. 54 years of brutal Assad dynasty rule has come to an end. The streets of Damascus have erupted in celebration. President Assad has fled the country and the capital has fallen. This is the presidential palace. People are now inside, taking the treasures of a corrupt regime. Every building and town square the rebels take, symbols and images of the regime are being torn down as Syria faces a new and unknown reality.
Dave Sharma, it's good riddance to an evil and bloodthirsty leader in Bashar al-Assad, but has he just been replaced by Islamist extremists? Is this regime going to be a bloodthirsty and shambolic one?
We don't know is the honest truth. I hope certainly not. I mean, look, no one should mourn the passing or the deposition, if you like, of Bashar al-Assad. He was a brutal, bloodthirsty, murderous tyrant who used chemical weapons against his own people. But the group that has taken over, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, is an Islamist group. There's no walking away from that. They have their roots with al-Qaeda. They're a listed terrorist organisation. We have seen them put out statements as they've advanced and taken the capital, which sound somewhat reassuring that they want to protect the religious and ethnic minorities of Syria, that they are going to seek to govern for all. They've instructed their forces to behave with discipline. So they're not acting like the Taliban did, for instance, when Kabul fell, but it's very early days yet, and I think we need to watch this very carefully. I certainly hope the future is a better one than under Assad.
Just very quickly, it's also a sign, though, that Iran is on the back foot.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, Iran basically pulled its forces out of Syria on Friday or Saturday. Hezbollah did the same. The Russians did the same. That's why the regime collapsed so quickly. And I think for Iran, it's a huge loss. This is a client state of theirs. It's gone.
Thanks for joining us, Dave. I appreciate it. Dave Sharma there, Liberal Senator for New South Wales and, of course, former Australian ambassador to Israel.